I took the glass and I slashed, one slash all the way across my wrist, and the blood just immediately just sprayed onto my face. I did a second one, same thing happened, it just erupted all over. My name is Benji, and I've been sober for 4.5 years. I'm just one of the boys, one of the men that was broken in addiction, and I rose above it. And I did that through, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, fellowship and treatment. My story started off when I was a little kid. That very first time I went outside to play. I grew up in a primarily white community, so that second I stepped outside, I already automatically felt, different. I felt uncomfortable in my own skin. And in my house, it wasn't any better, My parents, they were born and raised in the Philippines. They didn't move to this country until they were adults. So when I was in my house, I was being raised in the Filipino culture. The second I stepped outside, I was in America. So it was confusing for me. My parents, I love them. I love my parents, but growing up, it was difficult because it was just more discipline than anything else, and some discipline and punishment. What is the best way I could describe it? In the neighborhood, the kids were friends with their parents, and I wasn't. They were just doing what they knew, but for me, it was difficult. And I go outside, I was lost. This brown kid in this white world. I was definitely insecure, and all I wanted was to be accepted and to be normal and to be a part of life, but I wasn't getting that from this outside world. And in my home, I definitely wasn't getting that love and acceptance, because what I was doing, was never enough. I had to be this perfect person, just even as a little kid. I ended up, becoming this actor, living this lie. From there, that's where all my, destructive behaviors began. I became the master of manipulation at early age, because I started lying and I started to be not me, if that makes sense. I didn't want to be me. I didn't want to be this Filipino kid. I wanted to be this white kid. So I did anything to be accepted, I became the class clown, the token Asian white kid, the token Asian kid. That became me. And you add, alcohol to that mix, and it was over. Because what the alcohol did for me, it made me feel normal, and that's the key word. That's the key word. It made me feel normal. I was bold. I was courageous. I was secure. I was part of the community, and that's what alcohol made me feel like. It just made me feel normal. And it started when I was that kid. So I lost myself very early on. My childhood through junior high and high school, I didn't care about, my grades. I didn't care about, my parents. All I cared about was being cool and being accepted. I wanted to be friends with everybody, because that's the thing. I just wanted to be accepted. So I was getting high with the stoners. I was, breaking into cars with the thugs, going to keggers with the jocks. I was being everyone and anyone, but I just wasn't being me. I knew at that early age I was already an alcoholic, because I knew what it took to keep it going. I had to have alcohol, drugs on me 24/7. And what did I have to do? I stole from my parents. I stole from the neighbors. I had to keep the grades up, so I cheated to keep my grades up. And again, I'm just manipulating my way through everything, just to keep my high going. Because I didn't want to go back to that insecure kid, that was that Asian kid, scared. And I needed that alcohol to make me feel normal and make me feel brave. And it worked. It really worked. I was a part of. I was rolling. I was hanging out with everybody, just the way I wanted to. Alcohol was the solution for me. It continued on, but you add in all the new and crazy substances, I would say. You add in the ecstasy, the psychedelics, the speed, the meth, and anything to put in my system to make me not me. I was functioning, it was working for me. College was a breeze because, I was high the whole time. My major was television and film, so that was easy. I was just running around with a camera all day. Smoked pot for the creativity, did some cocaine and speed to stay up when I got tired. When it came to studying, which, I had to study, otherwise my parents would take me away from school, and I did not want to go back home to my parents. Back then we had Ritalin, we didn't have Adderall, so I was snorting, Ritalin just to, stay up to be able to study, and definitely cheated a lot on my exams, and I made it through college again. Through all, that addiction, I did have a good work ethic. And my work ethic came from me wanting to keep the high going. I knew if I knew if I flunked out or, I wasn't working, I wouldn't have the resources, to keep the high going. So I move on and I graduate and I immediately get a job at MTV. Talk about career moves, working at a job where it's accepted to continue on, doing my drug use, my alcohol use, and carried on, and it was accepted, it was cool. I was smoking weed with Snoop, I was doing blow with Sugar Ray, the band Sugar Ray, I was drinking with Carmen Electra, and what I perceived as success and fulfillment were all just lies. All lies I created. My idea of happiness and joy, it was just a lie. My happiness, my joy, my fulfillment, it came from seeking the material, seeking value on how people perceive me, seeking value from money and popularity and fame. That's who I was back then, and it was all fueled by, the alcohol, and it was all fueled by the drugs. And yeah, it's just that. From childhood to adulthood, that's who I was. So I did everything, but the drugs I used on a daily basis, on an everyday basis, I was alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, and opiates, Vicodin and Oxy. Those were my everyday use, but recreationally, I never turned down, I was always doing ecstasy, I was always doing my mushrooms, psychedelics, and, always, smoking crack. That sounds weird saying, but, so it was poly, it was everything. There was a time I was in Mexico, and deep into Mexico, like by Rosarita or something, but not Tijuana. We were down deep, and we were looking, we were looking for cocaine, because we had run out. So I don't even know what the proper name for cocaine is in Spanish, but I was just walking down the street going, to anyone, just go, coca, coca, coca. And I run into this, this dude in the street. He's like, cocaine, yeah? Cocaine, yeah? I'm like, yeah, cocaine, cocaine. He guided me to this, I followed him and he walked me to this, what it looked like, as you're walking towards it, is like at the end of the street, it looked like a rundown motel. And as you get closer, there's gates to the motel, and then next to it you have, guys just sitting down with machine guns. I follow this guy, they open the gates, and I'm walking through the middle, and you have rooms on either side, and I'm walking through. It just is straight out of a movie, guy, you look in, one side you just look and there's, prostitutes, naked, probably smoking crack, doing heroin, and you can look at it, just going through the doors, you walking in, and everyone is just staring at this, Asian tourist walking through with a guy leading me to some back room. And in the back of my head, I was going, I'm not coming out of this. They're gonna either rob me or they're gonna shoot me in back of this room. And so they leave me in back of this room. They start filling this bag with some coke. They asked for my money. They said it was gonna be 20 bucks in the street, but then, you get there and they're asking for 200 bucks. I finally got it, and then they go, okay. And then I go, me watching movies, I go, I gotta try this first, give me a sample. And they cut it up right in front of me. I did a sample and it was actually really horrible. It was something. They led me out, but another guy led me out and he had a gun. And so I was, walking ahead of him, he was walking behind me, and that whole time, it was just slow motion. Like I was just waiting for a bang. Cause I'm walking, he's behind me, and I have no idea what's going on. But long story short, I make it out of there, and I have a bunch of drugs to take to my friends, and we party, and and that was it. But thinking back to it, how stupid and ridiculous that was to be even in that situation. And it all came crashing down, for me. And this was years and years of use. I just woke up one morning and, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I had no plan. I just decided that day, I was gonna kill myself. I was in so much despair. I was at such a rock bottom. All these voices in my head, just telling me that I was worthless, that no one would miss me, that I'd be better off dead. And I listened to it and I believed it. But I couldn't get those voices to stop. It came to a point where, I was penniless. I didn't have a penny in my pocket. So normally what would happen if I was, suffering that much, I would, obviously use to self-medicate, but I didn't have those options at that point. And I was walking to the beach, and I just wanted those voices. I just wanted it, all the madness, all the chaos, just to stop. And I found the bottle on the beach, and I broke it. I took my cell phone, I put my suicide letter on Facebook, and I called my brother and I told him, I'm gonna kill myself today. And he thought, just the reaction, because I had been such a liar for such a long time, no one knew that, I was dying inside. He said, what are you talking about? You have a great life. And I just said, just tell mom and dad I love them. And I hung up on them. I didn't want to be ID'd or anything, obviously, so I threw everything, my ID, I threw my phone into the ocean, my ID, anything I had in my pocket, I threw in the ocean. And I just sat down, and it was just, my whole life, everything was just crashing down on me at that moment. And I just did it. I took the glass and I slashed, one slash all the way across my wrist, and the blood just immediately just sprayed onto my face. I did a second one, same thing happened, it just erupted all over, and I did a third all the way down from my wrist to my lower forearm, because it wasn't a cry for help, I was just done. I sat back and started just looking up into the sky, and everything started to go dark. And then my life started to flash in front of me, just snapshots from when I was a little, from a little kid. You have balloons, birthday parties, just these images of being with my grandma, being held by my dad, riding a bike, going through high school football photos and weddings I've been to, my brother's weddings, just snapshots of my life, just snap, until it reached the very end, and just everything went silent. I asked for death that day. I asked to die, and I did die, but that's when I had my encounter with God. All that shame, that guilt, it was gone. And I can't even explain what I experienced, because I don't have the words for it. But I was in God's hands, and all I felt was peace and love, something I've never felt before. I woke up, I woke up in the hospital, I was looking up as they were rushing me through hallways, and I was just coming in and out of consciousness. One of my arms was handcuffed to the gurney, and I just remember hearing, "What's your name? What's your name?" And I'm looking up, I'm being banged around as they're rushing me through the halls. I knew I killed myself. There's no way I survived. I was dead. So in my mind, when I was going through these dark halls, I thought I was in hell. In my mind, I thought I was in hell, and this was going to be my purgatory. I was going to have to relive this moment over and over and over and over, because there's no way I was alive. And it wasn't until I woke up in my room, and I had a couple friends in there that had found me. I look over and I make eye contact with one of my friends, and she started crying. I go, "Oh crap, I survived." And from there became my long journey to recovery. I was confused. I definitely did not want to be part of this world, and here I am. As my friends are telling me, how they saw the suicide letter on Facebook, so they arranged search parties for me. And you remember, I'm walking towards my point of trying to kill myself, telling myself that, no one cares, that, I'm better off dead. And those were, again, I'm telling myself this, no one loves me. Yet, in reality, everyone's out there searching for me. They're looking for me. They're worried about me. And the hardest part about all that was, now I have that guilt that I put everyone through this. And now I have to be alive and be so shameful for what I did. So for the point, I'm going to, before my suicide attempt, I have all these feelings that no one will care, that I'm better off dead. Because I did not want to be around, and I was around, and that was really hard. And all I wanted to do was finish the job. That's all I wanted to do, was finish the job. That was all in my mind, because I couldn't take the guilt and shame for what I did. And so I convinced my family and friends that I still because it was my friends at the hospital, and I did not want them to give him my name. Because I was confused. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and so I ended up in the worst possible psych ward. That in itself was another experience. You're talking about a suburb kid, college graduate, had a great life, everything he wanted, and now I'm in this gloomy psych ward with crazy people. I'm not crazy. Well, I thought I wasn't crazy. I'm surrounded by people in gowns, foaming at the mouth, you know, and I just clearly remember laying in my bed, feeling like a scared little boy, and I remember pulling the covers over my head, you know, because I could not stand looking at my open door, which there wasn't a door, of people just roaming the hallways, and I was just plugging my ears, you know, just going, you know, please wake up, can't be real. How in the hell did it get to this? And you know, that next morning, my brothers and my parents came down to see me, and I had to see my dad cry for the first time. You know, my brothers were in shock because, again, they didn't know how to react, you know, around me. They were just in shock, so they were speechless. And so, you know, I agreed, you know, to go to rehab. I've never been to treatment. I knew nothing about treatment. That wasn't part of my world. And leaving the psych ward and being crammed into a house with 14 random dudes, and then being bussed into a treatment center with 100 other, you know, clients or people in rehab. You know, that was me going back to that kid. Is starting all over. I'm this strange kid in a strange world. And I was going, oh crap. You know, my biggest fear was being that kid again, and I was that kid again. You know, but it wasn't until, you know, as the days went on and I started to listen, and I started to see for the first time in my life, you know, I wasn't alone. Because everyone around me was going through what I was going through, you know? And, you know, I would cry, and these strangers would tell me it would be okay, it's gonna be okay. And that's when I became I decided to give this a chance, you know? I decided that I was willing to get better. As soon as I surrendered, as soon as I gave my will over to the hands of God, my life changed. I had this hole that I was trying to fill for so long. I was trying to fill it with all the things of this world, and it was just never enough. What was missing that whole time was God. And you know, once I accepted, you know, Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, you know, everything was buried. My past was gone and everything was new with God. What helped me, you know, get better? I like to call it the combo platter, you know. 3 things really helped me. Number one, first and foremost, is Jesus Christ. Second was fellowshipping with others that were going through what I was going through, that have recovered. Third was treatment with therapists and group sessions and clinicians. It was a combo platter of that all that helped me get better. And it's an everyday battle still. Even though I'm experiencing a life I could never imagine, I'm still hitting my knees every morning. I'm still going to my AA meeting, still seeing my therapist, because that's growth. And I was reborn, and I was starting all over, and there's no going back for me. You know, there is no you know, people say it's okay to relapse, you know, but relapse is death for me. And so I'm continuing to take care of myself, be with God every day, and, you know, serving others.